where God is glorified and the people of God edified.
The thoughts, views, and comments expressed on this show are not necessarily those of the management, ownership, or production of Glory 93.9 FM.
Today can be the turning point in your life by making a simple decision.
Fundamental questions of navigation. Where am I? Where am I going? And how do I get there from here?
I invite the leaders of our planet to ask themselves these three questions before they make any crucial decisions.
But if you don't make decisions, you're going to stay right where you are.
We are all map makers.
We are in a time of transition.
If we're going to change, we have to change the direction that we're going.
Our planet needs leaders who know where they want to go.
When we change the direction we're going, then we want to make sure we're going in the right direction.
Leaders who can see the big picture.
Because if we're not, we're going to either go backwards or we're going to stay where we are.
Recognizing the psychological and the spiritual shifts and changes that need to be made, often from the inside to the outside.
To be able to shape your future, you have to be willing and able to change your paradigm.
Complex journeys require navigation. The path to the truth is one such journey. This is your GPS. Hairstyling services provided by J.D. Edwards Salon and Spa, Palmdale Shopping Plaza, Ladera Street. Accessories provided by Chevette Williamson Jewelry. Standout jewelry for standout women. Wardrobe provided by Bahari Bahamas. Visit shopbahari.com. Bahamas, and welcome to GPS Global Paradigm Shift on Glory 93.9 FM. I am your host, Michelle Malcolm, and as always, it's a pleasure to be in your company today. Thank you so much for joining me. I promised you guys yesterday that we were going to be dealing with a trending topic, and I promised you that it was going to be a hot show today. Bring the mic closer. Okay. I do my best to keep my promises. So today on GPS, we are going to be discussing the topic. Is there something fishy about the Fisheries Act? We are going to be talking to men who are involved in the fisheries industry on both sides of this debate. And some interesting things I think are going to come out of this conversation. And my hope is that at the end of the day, it'll be more than just a conversation, but it will fall on the ears of the persons responsible for fisheries in the country, with a view to making sure that everyone involved benefits at the end of the day. So before I introduce my guests, I will tell you how the concept of the show came about. Somebody sent me a very lengthy clip, actually. What I did was I cut it up and pulled a couple of sound bites from it. But it was a clip by a gentleman by the name, I eventually found out, Ronald Labranche, who is a fisherman here in the Bahamas. And he was expressing some concerns about this Fisheries Act 2020. And I listened to the clip and I thought, wow, this is interesting. Sounds like a good show. And so here we are today. And so before I go ahead and bring my guests into this conversation, let's go ahead and listen to a portion of that clip that will sort of lay the foundation, and then we're going to dive right in. Let's go to clip number one.
You probably heard about the non-Bahamians not being able to be engaged in commercial fishing, And you probably heard a lot of people that support the bill and the people that don't support the bill. And we've been caught in this tug of war back and forth about the non-Bahamians being engaged. And that's been the highlight of the fishing bill. But after reading in depth and dissecting the whole bill over and over again, I realized that the non-Bahamian factor was only an illusion. You have to pay attention to what I'm getting ready to tell you. Fishermen, whether you're from Freeport, Acklands, wherever you're from, pay attention to what I'm getting ready to tell you. I'm going to give you some facts. This facts will probably open your eyes to see what's really going on. And the next couple of days, they will be holding a meeting in Fishery. And this meeting is about giving out license for condos, artificial reefs, cedars, traps, etc. We know right now that condos are considered, artificial reef that they put down in the ocean bed or seabed, and they come back later, put a position on it, and they come and get the product. Okay. We know that it's impossible to really regulate it to understand how this condo thing works. But now what's getting ready to happen is they're going to give you a license for this. You have to pay for those licenses. And every fishing vessel would have a cap, a maximum amount of license that you can own, if you could afford it. And once you have these licenses, you can now put the condos down into the Bahama banks, into the fishing areas of the Bahamas. And those condos would not be tampered with by anyone else but the owner. So if anyone else come in a certain radius of those condos, he could be held to pay a $10,000 fine or a year of prison, or both. $10,000 fine and a year in prison. If you come within a certain radius of those condos that are not owned by you. So what I'm saying to you is simple. That is what I've been trying to explain to everybody when I say the lease of the seabed. We know that the average Bahamian black fishermen are barely keeping our head above waters. We could barely afford to fuel our boat and send our boat out to sea. Now, you won't be able to go in certain rich fishing grounds in this country or in these waters because they would now be owned by Spanish whales. We know the Spanish whalemen make up 2% of the population, and they control more than 95% of the fishing industry. So they are very wealthy. They've been making millions and hundreds of millions of dollars over the years of fishing. We, as Black Bahamian, have barely scraped maybe $2 or $3 million. So our money compared to their money right now is no comparison. So now they have legislated something that would stop the poor man from going out to get lobsters, because now they would own all these licenses that you have to pay for and strategically place them in all the fishing areas that you cannot come in those proximities and fish, in those areas and fish.
Okay, so that's the voice of Ronald Labranche, who's a fisherman. We're going to bring him in as well as all of our other guests. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, Ronald, I was asking you for intro information and you never sent it, so you got to introduce yourself. Good morning and welcome to GPS. Go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience, please.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning, how you doing? I'll turn on my mic right now.
We can hear you fine.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Ronald Labranche. I'm a stakeholder of the fishing industry. I'm also a community developer and an entrepreneur.
Okay.
It's my pleasure to be on your show, Ms. Malcolm.
Welcome to the show. Also joining us this morning is Paul Miallis. Paul is a commercial fisherman, owner of The Boss Lady, a mango farmer, law student, policy activist, and founding director of the National Fisheries Association of the Bahamas, where he currently serves as secretary. Paul, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me, Ms. Malcolm.
All right. Also joining us on the show today is Prescott Smith. Prescott is the president of the Bahamas Sports Fishing and Conservation Association, president of the Bahamas Fly Fishing Industry Association, and he says he's passionate about a model of conservation that truly empowers ordinary Bahamians to use the resources in a sustainable way. Prescott, welcome to the show. We can't hear you. You're muted. Unmute your mic.
Yes.
There you go.
Good
Now we can
morning.
hear you.
How are you?
Great. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Thank you for having me on the show.
Okay. Thanks for being here. One more person to introduce, and I don't see his camera, but I see he's on the stream, so we're going to head and see if we can get him on. Louis Pintard. Louis, looking for his introductory information. He's a 63-year-old Ragged Island fisherman, Louis Pintard Jr., and a member of the Bahamas Marine and Mammal Association. Mr. Pintard, are you there? Okay, we're going to wait until we get him up before we bring him back into the stream. So, gentlemen, this is a very interesting topic. When I heard the sound bite that said it gone viral, and I need everybody to turn their phones down or off, please. When I heard Mr. Ronald Labranche's soundbite, I thought, wow, this is interesting, because we have all heard about the Fisheries Act, and everybody, realizes that we were told that this was put in place to protect our waters from, poachers. We've had a problem for years of persons from other countries coming in and poaching in our waters. And so this was put in place to protect our fishing industry from those poachers. But now the soundbite that Mr. Labranche put out, I thought, whoa, is there something more to this than meets the eye? So, gentlemen, let's hear from you. What are your thoughts on how we began the show with the sentiments expressed by Mr. Labranche in that clip? Paul, let's begin with you, because I know that you are very much in support of the act. Let's talk about why you are in support of this act.
Well, let's start off by saying, well, thank you for having us, and good to see you both, or see you all. And hopefully we could have Mr. Pintard in soon. But no act is perfect, Ms. Malcolm. And right now, we're in the mother stage of the act. The mother act has been passed, and there needs to be the regulations that are drafted. No piece of large legislation, such as the Fisheries Act 2020, can stand on its own. It has to be legislatively regulated, and then that piece of regulation is going to be passed in Parliament. So nothing that you see is in its finality, in its totality. And so right now, the National Fisheries Association and the statutorily created National Fisheries Stakeholder Forum is actively engaged in consulting with fishermen from across the country to see how are we going to word this legislation so that it is fair, it is equitable, and it is just, and it is going to help us meet our goals in accordance with the United Nations Law of the Sea, as well as our other laws, including our Constitution, which mandates a spirit of industry and the development of the Bahamian majority. So we need to think about the Fisheries Act in this sort of light. And we also need to acknowledge that we are still in the consultation phase in terms of the regulations. So when it comes to the discussion of the leasing of the seabed, it's unfortunate that it has been described as such, because lease, as you know, means ownership of a territory. It means that you pay rent or something in exchange to own land or own, I guess, a portion of the seafloor. That's just a legal term. Okay, and so what is being discussed in the act and what has actually been passed, but not regulated as yet, is that whoever sets a lobster condo, and for those who are listening and don't understand what a lobster condo is, a lobster condo is a free-flowing trap. The lobster does not have to stay in the trap. It is able to leave and come as it pleases. And it is normally set in places to intercept moving patterns of lobsters, and also to provide shelter where there is very little shelter already in existence, to draw the lobsters towards it, which makes them very easily harvestable by commercial fishermen. Now, lobster condos are a revolutionary fishing tactic that has been in place for over 50 years. We learned the technology from the Cubans, hence the name casita. And what happened was a few communities in the country actually first began to use this and implement it in a wide scale. They have led the way, sort of perfecting the technique. And now it is a pretty commonly known technology that is used across the country in every community. Some communities far more than others. And I think that that is the point that is causing a lot of contention, because and we've been having discussions. I speak of the association I represent has a lot of members from Andros, has a lot of members from down south, and they are particularly disturbed by the fact that we're trying to put a regulation on the fact that you cannot touch somebody's condo. It's a different situation with a fish pot. It's a very different situation with a stone crab trap, for example, because normally those have strings. So a buoy and a string attached to it, it goes down to the bottom. And once the lobster and the stone crab or the fish goes into the fish pot, they can't escape. We do have legally implemented self-destructive material that's supposed to break apart the trap and allow the fish to escape after a certain amount of time. But a lot of people don't do that, but that's the law. And the difference between a condo and one of these pot traps is the lobsters will not die if you do not leave them, and they don't usually have buoys. And the reason people don't use buoys with condos is because what has developed over the many years is now there are fishermen that specifically target other people's lobster condos, which means that individuals that do invest in constructing the lobster condos and setting them throughout the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, on the Great Bahama Bank, on the Key Sal Bank, down in the Pricks, and Key Lobos, and so on and so forth, these people are finding that their traps are producing less and less lobsters, and it is financially disadvantaging them. But on the other hand, you have many of these larger fishermen, a lot of them from Spanish Wells, a lot of them from Long Island, a lot of them from Grand Bahama, and a lot of them from New Providence. They will go to the most bountiful areas and they will lay condos. And what happens is a lot of smaller fishermen who are closer to the shore, that are limited by the size of their vessels, that are limited by their ability to invest in large amounts of lobster condos, they will find that the lobster condos are actually disrupting the amount of lobsters that are in their near reef environments, in their shoals, in their cracks. And so when they see opportunity, they take it. Now, where the government has now sought to try and remedy this is when you look at the United Nations Law of the Sea, and I'm talking about Article 70 and Article 69. This talks about our mandate, because the Bahamas signed onto the United Nations Law of the Sea back in 2008. Okay, this is a very important piece of global legislation, and it speaks to the role of a coastal state and its responsibility in managing its marine resources. And so a lot of the clauses that are causing contention right now in the Fisheries Act are actually directly taken from the United Nations Law of the Sea. And one of these, just to give you a short list of some of the things that the United Nations Law of the Sea talks about licensing of fishermen, fishing vessels, and equipment, including payment of fees and other forms of remuneration, which will, in the case of developing coastal states, consist of adequate compensation in the field of financing, equipment, and technology relating to the fishing industry. So the government is supposed to assist its fishing population getting on the ground, assisting them with making sure that their rights are protected through licensing, and also making sure everything is managed properly. It talks about determining the species which may be caught, fixing quotas of catch, which doesn't exist here in the Bahamas, relating to specific stocks of fish, talking about seasons, relating the size and of fish, relating to the seasons. And this is all, if you want to look it up, this is actually United Nations Law of the Sea, Article 62, utilization of the living resources of the coastal state. Okay, and also placing observers and trainers on board of vessels by the coastal state.
We're going to get into that a little later in the show. I have to pace the show.
Yes.
My other guest.
So just to let me wrap it up. I would say that a lot of the discussion right now, as if this is finished and it is done, but it is still ongoing. And I understand the frustrations shared by Mr. Prescott Smith and Mr. Labranche, but we're going to work these out.
Okay. Let's get Prescott in here, as well as Mr. Labranche. Prescott, what say you?
Yes, thank you again. Firstly, I want to make it very clear to Paul, this issue isn't a frustration. I don't speak to this as an individual. And secondly, I want to, I heard a lot about what the United Nations says. To determine our own pathway forward. The United Nations does not have the credibility for standing up for the exploitation of countries all over the world when it comes to indigenous people. And so for me, the issue before we even talk about licensing of condos, let's talk about the far deeper underlying issue. How does these things impact our environment? And are they benefiting local coastal communities? What impact do they have on the seabed? What impact does the material have in terms of resources? And then how that impacts humans? The only thing I'm hearing is individuals talking about how it can increase, personal profit. But at the end of the day, I hear the whole issue. And so many persons raise to me from throughout the Bahamas because Michelle haven't been in the Defense Force where I would board these boats. I pack of when a condominium goes on a turtle grass bed, and then all of that area particularly dies, and then how many years it takes to recover. Issues relating to our fisheries beyond this specific thing. And so to me, let's talk about the elephant in the room. More resources are extracted out of our country through illegal poaching with the recreational fishing industry, more than all fishermen in the Bahamas, the Dominicans, and the Hondurans combined. But nobody wants to talk about that. We tend to selectively single out these things and then label people on these islands as they're just pirates because somebody's coming from the coastline of, let's say, Cat Island, without any consideration how are these things impacting local communities. They're not just condominiums. These things are rated. And so you actually are altering how the natural environment functions. And so you can't just label whether it's Paul or Ron as being a pirate when attracted to this environment. It would be like me, Michelle, or you having a commercial, salmon fishery. And you say, well, all of the ospreys and everything are gathering there. How do you deal with that? Are you going to eat them? How are you going to deal with disease when things are penned up? And so there's many pressing issues in the fishing industry. So this is not personal with me. I raise the issues because persons in the group that even Paul and I am in, they would call aside, but they didn't want to speak up. What you find is when you address things beyond your self-interest, there's always a tendency for persons to try to, victimize you. And so I want to listen to a few others, input from both Paul, before I share some additional information on this issue.
Okay, let's get Ronald in on this conversation because Ronald, your concern is that the small fisherman is being disenfranchised through this law. And I hear what Paul says, that it's not written in stone per se, that it's still, being worked on. But what is your response to that? And why are you so concerned that the small fisherman is being disenfranchised?
Well, again, it's a pleasure to be on your show, and good morning, Paul and Mr. Smith. I'm glad he kind of cleared the airwave a little bit by saying it's not final. I took the bill as it was presented to me, and
okay, Ronald, you're coming in and out, guys. What I want you to do, I'm gonna take a quick commercial break. What I want you all to do, and please put in your earphones, and let's see if that improves the sound quality, because you're dipping in and out, and I really want to hear what you have to say. So we're going to take a quick commercial break. And then when we come back, we're going to go straight to Ronald to get his views on this. So stay with us. This is GPS Global Paradigm Shift on Glory 93.9 FM. We'll be back after these words from our sponsors.
Ocean blue with the best in seafood, hey, hey. Fresh out the water and affordable too, yeah. We got fish, conch, lobster, shrimp, everything you want. Ocean blue got it. Ocean blue, friendly and green, best service you ever seen. Ocean blue is the best in seafood, yeah. Fresh out the water and affordable too, yeah. Ocean blue seafood, we are here for you. Ocean blue seafood, no one else will do. Ocean Blue Seafood, located on Burnett Road. Contact us at 393-2160.
At Lee Air, safety is our #1 priority. Flying since 1996, we offer scheduled flights into Fresh Creek and Mangrove Key Andros and Great Harbor Key, Berry Island, twice daily, 7 days a week. Affordable charter services are also available to anywhere in the Bahamas and the Caribbean. Lee Air Charter Services. Call 225-3267, 702-7127, or 322-1317 for reservations. For all your building needs, it's Carib Construction and Project Management on Gladstone Road. We build it all. Schools, homes, hotels, and more, including structures requiring a Phase 3 electrical contractor. We also provide project management services. The first step towards your dream building begins at Carib Construction and Project Management. Call us at 376-1556 or 341-4466.
To stay healthy, it's crucial to make sure you get the nutrition you need every day. But it's difficult to get all your recommended vitamins and minerals from food alone. Even in the United States, 94% of people are deficient in at least one nutrient. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 by Youngevity is a simple, convenient, and affordable way to help your body get the essential nutrients it needs. It's an advanced plant-driven multivitamin mineral complex that contains certified organic whole foods, trace minerals, and antioxidants. BTT 2.0 supports your body's natural defense system with a proprietary blend of energy-boosting and body-loving nutrients, plus prebiotics, probiotics, amino acids, and enzymes that support digestion. With an unusually high ORAC score of 8,000, you get even more antioxidants to help combat free radicals that can cause damage to your cells. But to get the most benefit and value from any multivitamin, your body must be able to break down the nutrients so you can fully absorb them. Otherwise, they'll just pass through your system without doing any good. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 was specially formulated with synergizing cofactors to ensure you get maximum nutrient absorption. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 is the easiest way to give your body the balance and complete daily vitamin mineral supplement it needs for optimal support of your overall health. To learn more, contact your Youngevity associate.
Glory 93.9 FM. I'm your host, Michelle Malcolm, and today my guests are Paul Miallis, Ronald Labranche, who looks like he is off camera for a moment. I think he went to go find his earphones. Also joining us today is Prescott Smith, and okay, Ronald is back on now, so let's add him to the stream. Gentlemen, welcome back to the show. Okay, so prior to the break, Ronald, I wanted you to weigh in on what we have discussed thus far and talk about why you are especially concerned as it relates to how this act is going to impact the small fishermen.
Just want to do a mic check. Can you hear me pretty clearly now?
We're not hearing you at all now.
Wow.
Okay, now we can hear you.
Okay. Yes. I'm like I said, I'm kind of happy that Paul might have cleared the air when he said the bill is not final. I took the bill based on what was tabled and passed. And my concern was at the time, we were not part of the development of the bill. We was pretty much, when I said we, I have a couple of colleagues that we are part of a group, and we were not involved in the development of the bill. And after the bill being passed, we were concerned because the bill at its state that it's in right now would pretty much disenfranchise me and my colleagues. And that was the headline when I was talking about earlier in my speech about the non-Bahamians not being able to engage in commercial fishing when the boat is owned by a Bahamian. That was my concern. But later, after dissecting and going through the pages, I started to become a little bit more concerned because, Michelle, right now, the fishing industry, to be engaged in commercial fishing, the price tag is affordable for small fishermen to be engaged in this commercial fishing. But as you start to read the bill, you start to feel a little discomfort when the price tag seems to exceed the amount that we can afford to go out and fish.
Okay,
And
so Mr. Labranche, what you just did was you just went straight to what was going to be my third segment of
sorry.
so,
Yeah, but
so now that you're there, we might as well address it. Producer, let's go to clip number 3, okay? Let's go to clip number 3.
Right now, today, we know it only takes about $200, $300 to own an FDC license to go out and fish. Under this new law, it would take thousands, up to $10,000s of dollars to own or be engaged in commercial fishing because of these new laws that they putting in play. This new act, they have something that they in this bill that's called observers. They could appoint observers to your boat. An observer is a person that they appoint to your boat to investigate you, to see how your fishing method is done. These observers could come from United States. They could come from any island. You are responsible for the observer ticket. You are responsible for his daily per diem. That means his daily allowance, food or whatever. And you are responsible for his salary. And you also are responsible for his insurance when he boards your boat. And he's not held reliable for any damages that he do while he's on your boat. So if he destroys something on your boat, he doesn't have to pay for it. And this is a government appointed investigator that they will put on your boat. And if you can't afford to pay the observer, then you can't afford your fishing license. They could take it away from you if you do not pay it. So you have to think about what this bill is really doing to you, Black Bahamian. Unfortunate Bahamians. They are now making this fishing industry that the Spanish whales and those have control 95% are giving them 100% now.
Okay, so again, I had intended to address this a little later on in the show. Go ahead, Paul. I see your hand up. How do you? Because I'm glad that you're pointing out that this is a legislation that is still being developed as far as the wording is concerned, and as it relates to that, I have a comment from Anne Marie Albury. She says, developing wording, the legislation or the regulations. So I need you to clear that up, but also go ahead and respond to what you would have just said, Paul.
It's about clearing up the wording of the regulations. And as you know, the regulations can have just as much impact as the Mother Act itself. But I have to challenge Mr. Labranche here. Now, he's talking about how your cost of fees is going to blow up from $200 to $300 to be a commercial fisherman to $10,000 plus dollars. Now, that's a little disingenuous, and let me tell you why. Because there's no evidence in the current licensing or fees that lends any sort of support to that statement. When you think that the compressor license is $5, the commercial fishing license is $50. The registering your boat that's over 50 feet, $100, $200. And so now why would the government then make the jump to all of a sudden make lobster condos something that is worth tens of thousands of dollars just to be able to fish that. That doesn't make any sense. There's already a regulation for how much you have to pay to be a lobster trapper, for example. And that's somewhere in the 100 range. And so there's no evidence to back that up, that this is going to cost that much more money. But we have to start thinking, the act is not the only thing in our lives that is calling us to have regulations on condos. We have acceded to and accepted and lobbied for something called the Marine Stewardship Council certification. Now, what is this? This is an international certification for the spiny lobster fishery. And what this demands of us is that in exchange for having our label be sustainable spiny lobster caught in the Bahamas, that is with well-regulated waters, clean, protected waters, free from too much poaching, free from too much unregulated activity. And we're going to allow you to get better prices for your lobsters on the international market. In exchange, you must prove to us that you are disciplined as a state, that you are committed to regulating your lobster fishery to make sure it is not unsustainable. Now, Mr. Prescott Smith mentioned that lobster condos can be harmful to the environment. That is very much truthful, but they can also have benefits in other areas. For example, they take away heavy fishing pressure away from established fishing reefs. So commercial fishermen don't always have to go to the reef structure where they're handling it, they're touching it, they're disturbing it, they're sparing other fish on it. And so there are benefits. Also, I was at a UP because I'm a student at the University of Bahamas, and I like to attend these fisheries lectures. And one of the lectures I attended recently talked about how the presence and the additional abundance of lobster and fish in and around condos actually increases the nutrient level around the condo, which actually causes the seagrass to be more productive in the surrounding area in terms of absorbing CO2 and producing oxygen. So that's an interesting thing. I'm not saying that, but I want to get it. I'm saying that I want to have it down. There's no proof that the cost in terms of government licensing is going to be exponential. But we do need to understand as a people that we're going to have to regulate lobster condos, whether we put quotas, whether we limit where people can set them, or we limit the amount people can set them, or we regulate the materials they are made of. We must regulate lobster condos. It's a must.
Okay, let's let him respond to what you're saying, that he's being disingenuous. Why do you, Mr. Labranche, believe that the costs have all of a sudden gone up as a result of this? If this legislation is enacted, why do you believe that's going to make it difficult for the small fishermen?
Okay, just to correct Paul, on the observer part, I'm not talking about the licenses for the condos because those fees haven't been set yet. And also, to make it clear, I'm clearly talking about an observer, and I gave the definition of what an observer is, and that's a person that fishery would now appoint to anyone's vessels to investigate their fishing method, and that's a person that they put on your boat. And on the bill, it says that you are responsible for the ticket, the flight ticket, and wherever countries or place that person comes from. You are responsible for his daily per diem. You are responsible for his insurance. You are responsible for his salary. And also, as you read more in that, it says that you're also responsible for any administration cost that the director may direct towards your bill. So you have an open bill that they give you. And I'm not talking about the condos, the trap, or none of that. I'm talking about the extra expense that now will be in existence once this bill becomes law. And we know that a flight ticket, whether it's from the family island or it's from the United States, that's very expensive. And to hold a boat owner or a person responsible for an investigator that the government puts on your boat, I think that is kind of ludicrous for me, or ridiculous. And that was a great concern for me because we know the cost of travel, the cost of food. Once you enter the Bahamas, we are the third most expensive country in the world. And those costs can be off the Richter scale, if you agree with that. And that was my great concern in regards to that section of the bill. It's a complete different section that we are talking about. And yes, it is very concerning because we know fishing as it is right now, and Mr. Prescott and Paul can attest to this, that we base our finance based on our catch. So it's not an automatic income. And if you go out and you catch nothing, you make nothing, you'll be in the minus. And if you are productive in your catch, yes, you probably could pay some of those costs. And in the bill, it says if you cannot afford to pay the observers, they could take your license away. And like I said, it's an open bill. And that is my great concern.
Mhm.
Okay, go ahead, Prescott.
Yes. Again, I want to be clear to the Bahamians who are listening to this. The issues that I'm speaking to, where are they coming from? Firstly, I was in entry 20 in Defense Force, and most of my squad mates are either commanders, still in the Defense Force. I also speak from the historical background, beginning of the Defense Force and the experiences out to sea. And so I don't want, Paul is giving you some information. I don't like Bahamians just getting snippets. They ought to get the whole story when it comes to this issue as it relates to condominiums. So if I was to ask a question, for the last 50 years that condos have been put on our seabed, we know the materials, the different types of metals, and yet there is not a single example of anybody cleaning up all of this material that in most cases can be destroyed just in one hurricane season. And so the issue about how we regulate these condos, we know that it's a must that our whole fishing industry needs major attention. It cannot just be to service small special interest groups. And so I have always been concerned about these issues, hearing from many different sectors throughout the Bahamas, from Inagua to Grand Bahama. And so that is the position of which I speak from. And when somebody is talking about licensing a condominium, and then all of the stereotypes that go along with who's a pirate and who's not, well, who is to say that the people who are putting 1 million condos walling around Andros, that they are not pirates? Just because they paid for the 2x4 or the sheet metal, it does not give them the exclusive right at the end of the day. Michelle, if you, Paul, or Ron plant 100 mangrove trees along the highway, all of a sudden you're going to say because they're bearing that they're exclusive property, the seabed in this country belongs to all the citizens. And so what this fishery bill is exposing, it has to do with anything to do with our resources in this country that have always been dealt with, catering to special interest groups, whether we're extracting the minerals, whether we're dealing with our freshwater lands. And so my issue with this fisheries bill is I am a huge advocate. I want to see the fishermen to reap the profits, but they cannot be, a vision in their approach, because you can be creating a lot of profits, let's, for example, at my fishing lodge, but yet I'm closing down all other fishing lodges in the Bahamas. And they are just selfish people. That's the nature. I have them in my family. I have many friends who just only going to think about themselves. But I choose to be the opposite. And so my issue for raising these concerns is because I know the history of this industry. I know that Paul might not want to share with you that Every time the lobster season open up, the purchase of bleach goes up about tenfold. I know when we used to board the boats on the Defense Force and my colleagues, that there were fishermen, whether they be from Andros, Long Island, Spanish Wells, the bleach was in the 5-gallon fuel containers. And so we have many issues in this industry, and to just be pointing the finger and saying that it is just this condo issue and who's the pirate and who's not, it is disingenuous, because I am quite aware of the whole history of this industry, how when we boarded a boat from Spanish Wells, they didn't want you to come on the boat. I know the racial issues, and I have very good friends in Spanish Wells who are not like that. I have persons in Andros who might be picking up the baby lobsters and they're shelling them. We have to speak honestly about these issues because no island is perfect. And so that is the background, Michelle. And even as I'm having this conversation with you, I have colleagues from all over the country on the Defense Force who are giving me horrible historical experiences that they've had out there on the high seas that are ugly. And it shows the ugly side of our citizens who are only interested in their selfish agenda. And this isn't singling out Long Island, Spanish Wells, because we have persons in Andros who think the same way, in Cat Island who think the same way. And so I speak it as it is, straight across the board. Thank you.
Paul, I see you. Anxious to jump in. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would say he's very right. Mr. Smith is very right. Very fair and accurate shakedown. You know, we have tremendous issues with the mentality of many fishers in this country. And so I'm a little empathetic sometimes when I hear about this provision because, you know, on one hand, I know of my members and the people that I work with who are very heavily invested in the lobster condos, and they're always mad that, you know, their condos are always being rated. But then, you know, there's so many people that, just as Mr. Smith said, they are tired of having these condos anywhere near them. And honestly, I didn't really think that this was going to be that major an issue because when, just like you said, there's so many other issues that we have to fight in terms of the destruction of the mangroves, in terms of destructive fishing apparatus, in terms of pollution, in terms of having to be concerned about other states having desire to fish in our waters. And then we have, and piracy is just one of the concerns that we have. Use of bleach is just one of the concerns that we have. So he's very, very right. I just want to jump back to Mr. Labranche, the concern about the observers. Mr. Labranche, I am just as concerned about the observers as you. That's why I reached out to Mr. Edison Delavo, who is the former director of the Department of Marine Resources, and I asked him, you know, what is this about this observer program? He says, the department only intends to use this observer program for proprietary fishing operations. So let's say right now the government is working on trying to research and develop the golden crab industry, which is a deep water crab species that's being accessed heavily by Floridians on our northern border. But we as a country basically do not utilize it. And so if there's a proprietary Bahamian operation that says, hey, I want to go and access this new fisheries resource, or I want to go access squid on the west side of Andros, you know, the government saying, hey, we want to have an ability to both collect data and science at the same time, but you're out here making your operation. And so the act gives discretion for the Department of Marine Resources to impose the costs on these fishers. Does that mean it will always be executed in such a cruel manner? I highly doubt it, especially since, you know, it's just not the trend. It's not the trend to impose costs on fishermen here in this country. The department is in full realization that most of the fishermen in this country do not have the resources to handle that type of burden. This is why we partner with universities. This is why we partner with nonprofit groups like the Nature Conservancy and the Bahamas National Trust. And this is how we supplement costs in this country. Right now, the Nature Conservancy does a tremendous amount of research for the government, well, assisting the government. And that's something they don't get paid for or get any thanks for. And so, you know, we have an intricate system. It needs to be improved. We need to continue to make sure that there's nothing in this act that's going to be left on. But there's one more thing I'd like to say, and that is the one thing that has been pretty unanimous in terms of from the communities of Andros to Grand Bahama to Cat Island to Long Island to Eleuthera, is that they want the Bahamas preserved for the commercial fishing industry, preserved for Bahamian citizens. And this is something that the first act attempted to do, but it allowed a loophole. And that is why it has been undone in this Fisheries Act. And just like Mr. Prescott Smith has done with the fly fishing legislation to make flats fishing something that only Bahamian guides can actually lead and make money from, this is the same way we have tried to make commercial fishing in this country. It's nothing out of the extraordinary. It's something that individuals who have been engaged in the use of non-Bahamian labor were told by the minister that this was coming, and they had a lot of time to combat it. And this has been coming for years. People like myself, people like members of my association have been pushing this very hard for many, many, many years. And so it's not a surprise, and it's unfortunate for Mr. Labranche. I do feel for him, but he's got to have to find a way to use Bahamian labor moving forward with this business.
All right, let's get Prescott in on here because he indicated that he wants to respond. Prescott.
Yes, thank you. Paul, just a few corrections because you're giving information that's part accurate. The Nature Conservancy is not doing any research in our country, just as charity. I've had personal dealings with these organizations, and they are raising hundreds of millions of dollars using the resources of the Bahamas. It's just that most people are not aware of how that system works. And so, that is an issue. And I'm glad your issue was raised about what is happening in the northern Bahamas, because most people are not aware billions of dollars of fishing resources are extracted from our country. And it's almost as if we had surrendered the northern territory of our marine environment, and the issue needs to be addressed. Lots of marine resources are extracted, as I pointed out, from swordfish, the very deep water group of species. And we tend to talk about something, the Nassau grouper, and while so much times more being extracted, whether it's Mystic grouper, Warsaw grouper, and the list goes on. And again, it's like the exclusive club. My issue, Paul, another thing I want to clarify, as president of the Fly Fishing Industry Association, I don't have any selective agenda. The issue with fly fishing was about not pushing for exclusive for Bahamians. It was about how do you develop a model in our country where you're empowering the local. And so if the industry is controlled by the Americans and the Canadians in terms of the global market, then Bahamians should have a legitimate opportunity to build the local side of the industry, because my agenda then and now is how do you protect the #1 marine nursery system in the Western world. And I found, Michelle, that it cannot be done, even in this commercial industry, if we do not empower Bahamian commercial fishermen, but educate them to the whole issues. I took many persons who are commercial fishing, use them to fly fishing, because I realized that we cannot just be focusing on lobster and conch. We are putting too much pressure. We have to look at it holistically. We have to look at the block nursery system in the country so that there can be more lobster, there can be more conch, more grouper. And so I don't like it when it's a very narrow approach taken to this issue. Our University of the Bahamas ought to be fully engaged in this. And I will say in defense of Mr. Delaveau, final comment for now, because I want to listen, is the former director of Fisheries. He took a very broad approach to this and educated myself. This bill came about with lots of consultation, but you're always going to have interests who are going to be pushing their individual agendas. It was no different for us in the fly fishing legislation. Many guides, as I went around training other guides, Michelle, They were complaining that you're sharing this information, you're going to cost us our job. They never looked at the big picture. And all I'm saying to the fishermen from Andros, Eleuthera, Spanish Wells, let's look at not making each other enemies, because if the communities are suffering from this, maybe we should be pushing other training to get them into deep water fishing so that you don't have these wars taking out place here about who's going in each other condominiums. And Michelle, I went on an exchange to Belize, and the head of all of the Cuban fishery were there. We went down there, and what was so powerful to see the #1 Cuban commercial fishermen were there, the head of all of their departments, which were all females, and the information they shared with the government of Belize, it helped dramatically improve the industry, because one of the complaints they had was how the baby lobsters being in their specialized traps. So the Cuban showed them to look, if you increase it by so much millimeters or centimeters, then they can crawl out. And so these are the kinds of ideas we need to come together holistically to address many, many pressing problems in our industry, and not just be pointing a finger and calling each other criminals. And so anyone take that approach, I take serious issue with that.
Okay, gentlemen, we have to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to look closer at how this will all be legislated, how it will be managed, I should say. How are they going to monitor all of this? We're going to look at that, and we would love to hear from you, our audience. And when we come back on the other side of the break, I'm going to look at some of your comments from Facebook, but we'd also like you to call in, for those of you listening on radio, or if you're on Facebook and you want to have your voice heard, give us a call, 828-3543, 828-3543 is the number to call. 828-2543, 828-2543 is the text line. So go ahead and give us a call. Get in on this conversation. We're talking, is there something fishy about the Fisheries Act? That and more on the other side of the break. Stay with us.
Car rental and auto sales, Robinson Road and 5th Street, The Grove, is your premium choice for affordable transportation. We have reliable cars at unbelievable prices. Ask about our daily rates, starting at $50, and our weekly rates, starting as low as $280. Call us at 437-4017 or 676-3977. Horton's Car Rental, your premium choice for affordable transportation.
Looking for an extraordinary junior high school with caring, qualified staff and affordable tuition? Then come visit us at Elite School of Excellence, an affiliate of First Step Academy. ABECA-focused and Ministry of Education approved, we foster discipline, integrity, and wisdom while molding our students for success. Call us at 341-8846 or stop by First Step Academy Schools on Fire Trail and Soldy Roads for more information. Escape from the city life to Bacon Air Beach Resort in Pirateswell, Mayaguana. Relax in one of 16 air-conditioned rooms just steps away from the ocean. Enjoy scrumptious dishes in our waterfront dining room. Sip on a tropical cocktail, or if you must, stay connected with wireless internet. Nestled on one of the most beautiful beaches in the Bahamas, Bacon Air Beach Resort offers a unique vacation experience. For reservations, call 339-3726 or 463-0182.
Understanding your microbiome, also known as your gut ecosystem, can change everything you thought you knew about nutrition, digestion, immunity, and metabolism. Keeping your gut ecosystem healthy and balanced is essential. Ultimate Microbiome by Youngevity was specifically formulated to optimize this ecosystem. It provides the advanced support your gut needs through prebiotic, probiotic, and postbiotic supplementation. Our unique blend of probiotics includes Lactobacillus and Plantarum, healthy bacteria that can help prevent harmful bacteria from taking over your gut. Increasing your gut's population of beneficial bacteria creates a more balanced gut microbiome, which has been shown to aid in weight loss, skin health, sleep, mood, and may even help with seasonal allergies. Ultimate Microbiome also promotes the production of postbiotics. Postbiotics are key to help regulate your gastrointestinal health. To enhance digestion, Digizyme Multi-Enzyme Complex, a blend of 5 specific enzymes, has been added to Ultimate Microbiome. It can help break down food so your body can better absorb nutrients. Plus, we've added our proprietary I-26 hyperimmune egg powder to aid in the elimination of disease-causing gut bacteria and help your body balance its immune response. Ultimate Microbiome, the scientific, proprietary, and holistic approach to gut health that helps optimize your body's entire gut ecosystem. To learn more, contact your Youngevity associate.
And we are back. Welcome back to GPS Global Paradigm Shift on Glory 93.9 FM. I'm your host, Michelle Malcolm. And my guests today are, let's get him in on here, Paul Miallis. Also joining us is fisherman Ronald Labranche. And also joining us is Prescott Smith. We're talking, is there something fishy going on with the fishing legislation, the Fishing Act? Okay, so I want to go to a couple comments from Facebook. Let's see. Stacy Smith says, I'm opposed to this act. It discriminates against Bahamian women. It's wrong. Let's see. Alex, he's talking about sound feeds. Okay, Citizens for a Better Commonwealth of the Bahamas say we don't agree with leasing of our seabeds, but we do believe that no one should be able to touch another fisherman's catch. Anne-Marie Albury is asking, will these regulations also apply to visitors who come in for sports fishing? Let's see. Let's go down. Anne-Marie is saying, wasn't the bill passed? And she has posted a link to a news story in which the bill was unanimously passed. Let's see. She says, this bill is passed. We are developing and finalizing legislation to become an act. All right, that's from Anne-Marie Albury. And we'll do one more. Let's see. Carolyn says, how long are these leases? Is the lease only available to Bahamians? I sure hope they don't have these 50-year-long leases, essentially giving ownership of our seas to the few. That's a very good question, gentlemen. How do you respond to Carolyn's inquiry?
Well, I want to touch on that. Like Paul said, the bill is probably still in its process of them implementing policies, but I want to go back a little further before the passing of this bill. My belief, and it's my opinion, the bill was rushed, Michelle. For whatever reason, I have my own opinion on why the reason it was done. But to rush a bill into law and have us as citizens try to dissect and clarify what the bill is saying, I think that is a poor job that was done by these politicians. Their job was to make this bill fair for Bahamians. Me, Paul, and Prescott shouldn't have to be coming on the radio in public air and try to defend this bill or make this bill make sense. These politicians were supposed to sit down and go through this bill thoroughly, dissect it, and I honestly believe that no one have read that bill 100% other than the developer of that bill. They didn't do it. So we are sitting here doing their job for them. And I think that is very, very disgraceful. And I'm very upset about it, because here you have a former prime minister saying that this bill discriminates against women and children. You have the Honorable Turnquest got up and said, do we not trust our Bahamian women? Because this bill was rushed. They didn't have time to really go through this bill. It was tabled in October, and it was passed. It was tabled in October 2020, and it was passed December 31st, 2020. And the bill was so much information that's not clear, that discriminate, and also violates Bahamians' constitutional right. I think it should have been dissected properly. These politicians should have went through it and took out what they see was not fair or discriminatory, and then pass a proper legislation. I have never seen so unprofessional job done by such people, and I'm not politically tied to no party. I'm a businessman. I'm a swing voter. I vote for individuals based on their vision for the Bahamas. I love country. I love people in country. And I want to see us become the top of the food chain that we can become a part of, because we have the resources. We are a very rich country. And poor governance is destroying us. And this bill is a fine example of such case.
Gentlemen, any of you want to respond to that?
Yes, Ms. Malcolm. Okay, I see somebody actually mentioned that they're concerned about the lease, and now they're even talking about the extent of the lease. There is no place in the Act that says anything about a lease or a license of the seabed. So you can take that out your mind and throw it in the trash, because it doesn't exist. It's not something that can exist. It's not in the Act. It is not a part of the Act. What they're talking about is licensing a lobster condo at the same level as licensing a fish pot. That's all that is. Okay? And then you have the issue of this Act being rushed. This Act was not rushed, Ms. Malcolm. This has been in the works for over a decade. Commercial fishermen, such as the ones I represent in the National Fisheries Association, they wish that this Act could have been passed the second that they put it on the table. Now, everything in the Act is not going to make everybody happy. There is no piece of legislation in no place in the world where everybody in an industry is going to approve of it. None of the Long Island fishermen agreed with the stoppage of the fishing of the grouper school. But that is something that took place, and today we're starting to see the benefits that it has reaped on the grouper fish stocks. Now, what is the benefit of the Act? Let's talk about how it's going to help the poor man, how it's going to help everyday fishermen. It mandates that we start to protect a lot of these species that are not protected. That's what it's mandating. It mandates that we use science, that we use data, and we need to more tightly regulate the fisheries industry to keep that richness, to keep that bounty. Right now, the only regulation for any grouper species, other than the Nassau grouper, is a 3-pound size limit. We have groupers, such as the Goliath grouper, aka the Jewfish, or the black grouper, that can grow to several hundred pounds. But the minimum size is 3 pounds. That's like this big. So we've got to work on all of our regulations, and there's so much to this bill. And I'm pretty sure Mr. Labranche is right. No, I'm pretty sure nobody read through that entire bill in its entirety, but that happens all the time in Parliament. But it was unanimously passed. Opposition and the current administration. And that speaks a lot, because they had a lot of trust in Minister Pintard. Because Minister Pintard did use an enormous amount of resources to have this bill drafted. And the fishermen that I represent, they can attest to that. They're always at the forefront. They're always pushing themselves to make sure their voices are heard. And if this is a lesson to all commercial fishermen across this country, if you do not want legislation that will hurt you or will disadvantage you before you can prepare for it, you must be involved. You must find associations. You must build associations. You must unite and let the government know what it is you want. And you still have the opportunity right now to the National Fisheries Stakeholder Forum to have your voices heard in the actual subsidiary legislation that is to come following this act, because it is an act of parliament. It is legal law, but it will not be enforced until the regulations are drafted.
All right. Anybody want to respond to that from Prescott?
Yes. The lady asked a question about lease, and we have to really, it can be very a gray area depending on how you respond to certain things. If a person is requiring to have exclusive ownership on a particular lobster thing that lays on the seabed, that is a form of a lease, because the condominiums are not suspended in mid-air. They are on the seabed. And so while these things might not say, well, I want to have a 20-mile zone, if you put 500,000 condos within a 20-mile zone, and each of them have a license, like a lobster trap, my issue isn't just here or there to focus on that. My issue is, where are these things going to be laid? Where is the science to show what is the seabed? And I can tell you this from the fly fishing industry. We do not just run a boat and tear up the turtle grass, because I can tell you, Michelle, I can show you places where big boats have run across, and 5 years later, the turtle grass is yet to grow back. And so there's a lot of research and sound science have to be put into this, and not just make decisions in a vacuum. And that's why, while I support anything that is addressing our fishing industry overall, I don't like the approach of the helter-skelter. And this isn't politics. They did a lot of the same thing with the fly fishing legislation. They passed it in 2017, and Minister Gray was very adamant about doing the very best. But he himself had a lot of pushback from even persons within his own cabinet, because you have all kinds of special interests who want to water things down to just serve the benefit of a small group of individuals. And so it's no different from this bill. I hear people talk about the Dominican as if it's just the Dominicans but marriage of convenience is not exclusive to Bahamian female and Dominicans. Many Bahamians are marrying Americans, Canadians, persons from England, all over the world to get access to our resources. And so, because I get to see the whole picture, and we tend to like to single out things at the end of the day. So you would be shocked to see the amount of commercial fishing boats in this country that are owned by Americans with Bahamians on board of them. You would be shocked to know, my fellow Bahamians, and see, I saw the dead bodies in the freezers, boats coming from Dominican Republic. We don't want to talk about that. Many of them go back to Dominican Republic as cargo in the freezer, because they die out there with compressors. But you would also know that those boats are leaving Dominican Republic sanctioned by powerful interests. They're not leaving in the dark of night. And there's a huge connection between what happens in Dominican Republic and corruption in our own country with relation to millions of resources at the end of the day. And I can tell you there are millions of dollars worth of lobster extracted from baby lobsters that are sold in bags and bags of meat in Nassau, right, around the Bahamas. There's 1,000 things I can list, and we have to deal with this issue once and for all in our country. And anything that excludes our University of the Bahamas, excludes true empowerment of our people from the bottom up, I am always suspect of it because it's just about benefiting a few short term. And when this fishery is destroyed and collapse on us, because we didn't think, Michelle, that the cod fishery, there was no end in the United States. For those who don't know the history of Canada, from New York to all of these states, they had the same thing like sponge and money never done. They had that approach to their fishery until it collapsed. And if you do a survey around the Bahamas, you would find out the local communities are saying there's less lobster along the coast, there's less conch along the coast, but yet there are hundreds of block creeks that we are yet to open up. And so I want to take a holistic approach to this issue and not have it being driven by special interests or, political agendas.
All right. I want to go back to the question of how this is going to be enforced. I don't know if enforce is the right word. How it's going to be monitored, I think, is a better way of saying it. And I will play one final clip from the soundbite that Ronald had put out to talk about how this is all going to be monitored. So let's go to clip number 2, and then we're going to discuss it.
How would the government monitor such activity? Well, fishermen, every FDC boat will now have to put a GPS device on your boat. This GPS device will give you a location at all times. The government will be monitoring that. These GPS devices, the owner of the vessel have to pay for it. So the government will issue them, will sell them to you, and you have to pay for it. If you can't pay for it, you cannot go out and fish. Okay? That's law. That's going to be the law. The bill has been passed, but it hasn't been given an enforcement date yet. So all the minister have to do is say is I'll enforce it tomorrow or today and effect it immediately. That's all he has to do. So fishermen, understand what's happening to you poor fishermen that support this bill. This was hidden in the bill, so you don't know. See, he knows that you're not going to go out and read this bill. He knows that they're going to highlight the non-fishermen and say that the waters are preserved for Bahamians. The water is preserved for Bahamians, but the elite few Bahamians, the white Bahamians. Okay? We could say that I'm pulling a race card. All I'm doing is giving you facts.
Okay, let's get everybody in on this. How do Paul and Prescott, how do you respond to that?
Well, I'd say, Ms. Malcolm, that it's very unfair, to say that this is an industry that's preserved for white Bahamians. We all know the historical context of the nature of the Spanish Wells fleet and the Abaco fleet. They're some of the major pioneers and developers of the commercial fishing industry as it is today. And so they have always invested and continue to promote their businesses. When you look at the Spanish Wells fleet, they invest in each other's ships. They hire each other's cousins and brothers and nephews. And so after a while, all that money is just going back into their community, and they continue to be the largest player on the field. And a lot of people think that that's some sort of systemic oppression, but that's them empowering their community. And so I give them a lot of credit for that. But let's also jump to the VHF sensor, the vehicle monitoring system. I'm actually a volunteer to be one of the first people to put the VHF system on my commercial boat, because I'm not really concerned about where people know I'm going. I'm not concerned that there's somebody going to come and try and steal all my information, because I know our resource department, our Department of Marine Resources, is challenged enough with dealing with the current challenges it has, that this is not going to be something that's used to steal information from fishermen. This is so the defense force and our satellite operatives can actually look and see, okay, if we get a report from one area that there's a poaching vessel or there's a commercial fishing vessel acting illegally, you'll be able to zoom in on the satellite and see, oh, that's an unmarked, unregistered, unsanctioned vessel east of Ragged Island. Bam, head straight there. And they'll know that if they pass 5 registered Bahamian boats on the way, they ain't even going to bother with them because they know that's not the boat that they're looking for. So it's going to help law enforcement. It's going to help people to know and understand and not tamper with or have to bother with our fishermen when they're out to sea. So it's a great thing. Now, in terms of the concerns that the VHF system is going to be used to prosecute people, no, you can't prosecute somebody for being near somebody else's traps. You have to have proof. There's something called the burden of proof in the legal justice system. You're not going to be prosecuted if there's absolutely no evidence other than a stationary hovering over somebody's traps that you had anything to do with tampering with their traps. So the burden of proof is not going to go away. It's not going to lead to the level of persecution that people are concerned about. And so I think that's also an interesting thing. Now, I'm trying to remember, is there...
Before you move on to the next point, Mr. Labranche is eager to jump in there. Go ahead, Mr. Labranche.
Yeah, Paul, I understand what you said. I've listened to the minister debate the bill before passing the bill. And I try my best not to spread any lies or rumors because, you could be held accountable for it. On the debate field, when the minister was talking about the GPS system, if I could recall, and again, this is my opinion, what I've heard, he said that you fishers would not have to worry about anyone tampering into your condos, traps, because you could give us the location and we would hold that location secretly. And these FDC boats that have the monitoring device, if they sit on your fishing ground too long, we know that they have tampered with your traps. I don't know if I heard it wrong, but this is what I've heard when he was debating the bill. And I try my best again to not accuse anyone of saying nothing out of context, or I try not to make it sound like it's a malicious intent. I could only give my opinion when something of such measures is said. And that's what I heard him say. And that was his purpose of me. Like I said, that's what I understood the purpose of the GPS device. And let's talk about the GPS monitoring device. All my vessels right now are currently being monitored by myself. I took it on my own notion to have each one of my vessels equipped with a satellite monitoring device that I can see at all times, because it was for the safety of my crew if they encountered bad weather, because we know the sea, when you're out there in the sea, the weather could change at any time. And I put them on there because we always lose the little small boats that we call dinghies. So each one of my vessels are equipped with these GPS monitoring devices. And one thing about those devices, they hold the recording of every passage like a regular GPS forever. So I could tell you what date, what time, everyone that is equipped with that monitoring device, where they went, where they've been, and where they sat at.
Gentlemen, we have a caller on the line. I don't want to lose this caller, so let's go to the phone lines. Caller, welcome to GPS.
Yes, good afternoon to each of your guests and to you, Michelle Cialan Johnson.
Hi, Cialan.
Just give me like 3 points. And oftentimes, I think one of the biggest problems we have is that we always have these so-called bills, laws, debates before and after, devoid of the intellectual capital, data, whatever is necessary for us to speak of. Let me first just talk to 3 points. The first point about this bill being discriminatory against spouses. I've heard this argument for the 20 years of being home concerning the rights of women and etc. And just devoid of this bill or anything else, the Constitution gives us the right to create an immigration laws, any defects concerning spouses of Bahamian women. The fact that for 48 years we've chosen not to do anything about it and lie on the Constitution about needing a referendum and all of these different things goes to it. So when you have former prime ministers and others speak to it, it's totally disingenuous. Now, if the processes in immigration lacks functionality, if you can't look at the bill and say the bill discriminates, the problem is that we need to fix the immigration laws or processes or whatever it is that happens. And so you have many of the wives saying, he's been waiting 20 years, he's been doing this or 10 years or whatever amount of time it is. That's an immigration defect, not a defect in this bill. And so the cross-contaminate that conversation, so we don't ever have to address the bill that discriminates if we claim it exists against my sisters, my mothers, the mothers out there, my aunties, my nieces, and everything. So I think somehow we need to separate the two of them from that. The second aspect of this is, for instance, it's so much that can be done in the use of technology for the management of our resources, something that we have an anti-technology environment in spite of being the most digitally prepared country in the world. And so, again, you talk about the monitoring from the GPS. There is technology, the programming exists where you could anonymize anyone's GPS, but know their rights to be within a certain territory. So, and I understand maybe what Mr. Pintard may have said about a boat being over it. If I have a condo on the ground and we are monitoring our complete exclusive economic zone in real time, right, whether it be by satellite, by technologies, underwater, beacons, buoys, or whatever, I don't need to go to verify that something is amiss with your traps unless you report it as being amiss. But by virtue of every vehicle in our country being mandated to have a location device, allows us to know exactly who was in that particular area at the time that this mishaps or robbery or theft or destruction would have occurred. And so if we have like integrated technology in its proper context rather than the Google, I think, I feel, I believe, or whatever the way it functions when it really don't, and embrace the way it could go in that direction, we can. My third point. This is what has always been my argument for the last 20 plus years. It's why I've always argued that the entire resources of the Bahamas, known and unknown, tangible and intangible, be surrendered to a sovereign wealth fund. Not the stuff that people discuss around the Bahamas, but an actual autonomous agency that acts as nothing but a bank. And then we begin to see sovereign asset management companies who begin to, even when you look at the fishery sectors, there's so many dimensions to it. These sovereign asset management companies would look to gather information, research, and protectionism, and whatever else that's aligned with it. Yes, we can insert the international organizations, universities, etc., College of the Bahamas or University of the Bahamas or whatever it is. But when we embrace technology, we can actually have the sovereign asset management system make decisions in real time that actually overlaps those that maybe handle a particular area, such as the mangroves and the preservation of the fishery lives and whatever. And we become what's called database type environment, even out into all the way out into the exclusive economic zone. But we don't have conversations like this. What we have is conversations concerning protecting me, protecting mine, what I think, what I feel, what I believe, and whatever else. And so when you begin to look at the fact that the Bahamas, when you have an integrated resource, whether it be, we talk about the aragonite, the sand, the mangroves, the fisheries, the flats, even our waters, whatever else, each has a symbiotic relationship. You're talking about a multi-trillion-dollar resources, but we're still handling it like a tuck shop. And I think so somehow we have to embrace the 21st century and begin to like step into the future, take the moonshot even, and anticipate and actually relinquish ourselves from this arrogance of ignorance that's limiting us in the arena for which we may believe that we know, and embrace the collective intelligence of not just ourselves, but of the world for the benefit of us exclusively.
All right. Thank you so much for calling, Ciara. Anybody want to respond to that? No? If not, we take a quick break. So let's go ahead and take this break. And then when we come back, we are going to bring it all home. We're talking, is there something fishy going on with the Fisheries Act? That's the topic today. And We would love to hear from you. Again, our telephone lines are 323 828-3543. 828-3543 is the number to call. And the text line is 828-2543. 828-2543 is the text line. Let's hear from you. We're going to continue on the other side of the break. Stay with us. This is GPS Global Paradigm Shift on Glory 93.9 FM.
Stop letting these other guys run you hot while looking for ice. No need to check the food store, the gas station, conveniently located around Nassau. Cooler Ice. So for just $3 you can get a bag of ice whenever you want, or refill your 5-gallon bottle for the same $3. The ice machine is closer than you know. Cooler Ice. With locations at Arawak Key, Potter's Key Dock, Montague Boat Ramp, Superwash locations at Prince Charles, Carmichael Road, Soldier Road, Charles Saunders Highway, and 3 new locations: Superwash Nassau Street, Wolf Road, and Gibbs Corner. Cooler Ice Bahamas. Fresh and ready whenever you are.
Want to look your best and feel even better? Visit J.D. Edwards Salon and Spa for the ultimate beauty, body, and anti-aging treatments, offering custom colors, haircuts, vegan anti-freeze treatments, silk blowouts, natural and acrylic nails, unisex pedicures, facials and massages, all waxing services, and microcurrent therapies for anti-aging and body sculpting. J.D. Edwards Salon and Spa, Palmdale Shopping Plaza, Madeira Street, telephone 326-7863.
Your body's immune system is under constant pressure from things like stress, lack of exercise, and toxins in the environment. It's crucial to be proactive and support your immune system with the nutrients it needs to function effectively. But it's often hard to get these nutrients from food alone. Introducing fast-acting Zinc Plus Immune Support by Youngevity. Unlike zinc-only supplements, Zinc Plus Immune Support builds on the proven power of zinc and adds complementary nutrients to give your immune system extra support. Vitamin D helps balance the effects of zinc, while our proprietary blend of natural fruit and root extracts provides the extra help your immune system needs to work against daily stressors. And we've included Youngevity's exclusive plant-derived minerals to give your body the minerals it needs, but can't get from food alone. And because Zinc Plus Immune Support is delivered in a great-tasting, sugar-free, berry-flavored lozenge, it encourages quicker absorption of all these nutrients into your body. Zinc Plus Immune Support. Zinc plus the extra support your body needs to promote a healthy immune system. To learn more, contact your Youngevity associate.
And welcome back to GPS Global Paradigm Shift on Glory 93.9 FM. I'm your host, Michelle Malcolm, and my guests today are Paul Miallis, Prescott Smith, and do we still have Mr. Labranche? There he is, and Ronald Labranche. We're talking about, is there something fishy going on with the Fisheries Act? I'm trying to get Paul in on the stream. But Paul, we're not seeing you. I see that you are here, but for some reason, it's coming up blank when I try to bring you up. So I'm not sure what's happening with your camera. All right, the numbers to call once again are 828-3543. 828-3543 is the number to call. And the number to text us is 828-2543. 828-2543. Paul, I'm not sure what's going on with your camera.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but we can't see you all of a sudden when I try to add you to the stream. So I'm not sure why that's happening. But I can definitely hear you. Let's try it again. Nope, still not coming up. So I need you to work on that from your end. In the meantime, we're going to go to a couple of your comments here on Facebook. Let's see what you guys are saying out there. Anne Marie says, how is this act going to address the exploitation of recreational sports fishing? Where is the focus on this? It is very important. All right. Let's see. Donnell Mitchell says, anytime the government passes any act or a bill, it's never to benefit the small man. I think they're trying to take away the independence of being their own boss. Eventually, they might be owned by oligarchy. no more freedom as their own boss. Let's see. Merlene says, Michelle, great show. I must say it is something fishy about Fisheries Act and also about the urgency to take this vaccine. The minister is saying that it will be here by next week. Yeah, that's a completely different topic altogether. Okay, Stacy says, everything this Dr. Minister administration does is botched. Can't do anything right. Screw up after screw up. Okay, you're getting into politics now, Stacy. Let's see. Let's try one more. This one is from Lisa. She says, I do believe that every bill or act that has been passed and enacted in Parliament, the authorities phases it to benefit certain persons in the Bahamas and outside of the Bahamas, but never the middle or lower social scale. If one looks at most of the bills enacted, one will find that they don't have the betterment of the average Bahamian at heart. Okay, let's see if I can get Paul back on. Oh, there he is. He's popped up now so we can see everyone again. All right, gentlemen. We've only got about 20 minutes in the show, and I see questions coming up as it relates to sports fishing, whether or not this legislation will impact sports fishing, because as many of you have pointed out, several of you have pointed out, the tourists who come here are taking more than the Dominicans who come poaching. So will this apply to them?
Of course, Ms. Mao. Of course, it's going to apply to them. This bill applies to all Bahamians, and of course, it applies to all foreigners. Now, the regulation on commercial fishing is obviously something that only can apply to Bahamians. So the detail in regulating commercial fisheries is obviously going to be greater than dealing with people that are coming in here on a permit or on a license. And in the existing legislation, there's controls on how much these individuals can catch and what they're allowed to do with their catches. And so we hope that in the new regulations and this is something that I am personally and my association is going to personally be pushing for, is to hold marinas better accountable for the people that come in and actually bring in and display fisheries resources that may be in violation of the law, and their role in terms of educating the tourist fishers that come into our country and actually mandating or explaining to them our fisheries laws and make that a part of the curriculum. And then also, I believe that we should have a reduction in the catch that a lot of sport fishers are coming in and being able to take. Because there's a lot of them that are coming in, they have the right to take 16 pelagic fish, 60 pounds of scale fish, 10 conch, 10 lobster. That's a lot of fish for a commercial fisherman, a small fisherman out of West End or Sweetings Key, or that's a lot of fish for a day. And so that's a lot of competition that we've allowed to be in our country, and for such a pitifully nominal price. I mean, we've got the current legislation. The fees are ridiculously low. And you know how a lot of fishermen avoid paying the really high licensing fees? They simply have one or two less fishing rods, and the legislation allowed them to avoid paying thousands of dollars more in licensing fees per year because they had a couple less fishing rods. And so our regulations need to be drafted in such a way that eliminates that loophole, eliminates all of these loopholes. And that's something that the fisheries regulations is supposed to do. But the Fisheries Act absolutely enables that to take place, and there's nothing that's stopping us from doing what's right now.
All right. Prescott?
Yeah, I want to address an issue that is not very popular to speak about. And when Ron called the issue about whether it's black or white Bahamians, I know it's uncomfortable to speak the truth, but we know the history of our country. So to deny that the whole issue of economics in this country was driven by race. Racism has always been about power and control. And our economy is structured still on that model. But does it mean that there are not good people in different islands who could be Caucasian Bahamians? Yes. But for those who want to be disingenuous and deny that we have a very racist structure that disadvantages the majority of our citizens is disingenuous. And so we cannot just say, well, someone can access and invest capital, because we can go back to the banking records and see who gets to borrow money and who didn't. who gets to lend money for furnitures and who got to loan for the business. And so we have come a long way, but to say that these are not chronic issues that need to be addressed. So when Ron pointed that out, we must be honest. And I'm not going to just leave him. If Paul had pointed it out and be honest about it, I would say the same thing. I have white Bahamians friends who are open and honest to speak. We live in a system of white supremacy. It's not pigmentation. It's been a global, and for you to deny it and think that it does not exist in the Bahamas, you can look to see where the wealth is concentrated. And so anything to do with resources, you have these struggles. And that's no different in the fishing industry. The Spanish Belt fishermen, you're not just great fishermen because, you know, the fishing, it takes place mostly on the Great Bahama Bank. But who can access the fishery, the equipment, access the capital? And so we know that many of these issues need to be addressed from different angles. But there are Bahamians who are white Bahamians in Long Island who are equally at a disadvantage in mangrove bush and who don't think about, you know, what pigmentation are. But to deny that it exists is disingenuous. And so we face these issues not just in our fishing industry, but our whole economic structure. We cannot, and that's why for me, I'm very passionate about addressing these issues holistic. I want to see Bahamians empowered straight across the board. And you know, Paul might not be aware of this, but I made a presentation to the National Trust. At the time, Neil McKinney was the president, and it was met with great opposition to addressing these many issues. I said, we can put in a system here that would bring thousands of people into the commercial fishing industry. It would take pressure off the traditional lobster and conch industry. But a lot of the special interests in our country, Michelle, who control real estate, they have this exclusive arrangement that, you know, the recreational fishing industry with the big yachts, you know, let's not look at that. So even when Dr. Nicola Smith, Bahamian professor, who exposed that more fish is extracted through the recreational fishing industry. And Paul pointed out, they are legitimate sports fishermen. I fished them. But some of these yachts are more serious commercial fishermen. Don't mind them looking fancy. They are gutted out on the inside and they are stocked with freezers from one end to the next. And so they're catching the swordfish, the tuna, the wahoo, and they're coming in under the radar of this $300 cruising fishing permit. Not a single person, Michelle, pays an individual fishing license in the recreational industry. Not a single yacht comes in, pays $1 environmental tax. So our country is being abused, and we cannot just single out, you know, one sector and not address it, the whole thing. Thank you.
Okay, I have a text.
Fully endorsed.
Thank you, Paul. I have a text that says, Mr. Smith says definitely on Facebook that there was an attempt to steal the seabed. Does he admit that the bill has nothing to do with a seabed lease? Misinformation from him is being far too acceptable.
It's not misinformation. See, that's why I say there's a spin on words. If I desire to get a permit, and so this is where people try to mislead you. If I desire to get a permit exclusively for a condominium, that condominium is resting on the seabed. It isn't resting in thin air. And so we can easily have a play on words by saying no one is applying for a 20-mile zone. But if I lay those condominiums within a 20-mile radius and I have an exclusive license for each one of them, and so I'm all for someone who puts a lobster trap out there with a buoy. No one should be encroaching on those persons who make the investment. But it's a gray area, Michelle, because once you go beneath that seabed, who is to say that I can then lease a particular coral area or a shoal area? And the list goes on and on and on. And so the fisheries laws does not, and it's a gray area that's being, it's like you want to address a particular problem, but that's not the real solution. So I understand where the concerns are coming from, but the encroachment, But my approach is through example. I've been involved in training of hundreds of fly fishing guides. Many of them were commercial fishermen who now enjoy catch and release, and they have no interest in going out on the banks anymore. And so I think we have to take that approach to addressing these problems. So I am not misleading Bahamians on that issue. I just give you the whole thing and not use these play on words.
Okay, go ahead.
Malcolm,
We're going to come to you in a second, Paul, but I see Labranche has his hand up, and we haven't heard from him in quite a bit. So go ahead, Mr. Labranche. We can't hear you. I don't know what's going on your end. We can't hear you. Okay, I'm not sure what's happening. It might be your internet connection. Paul, let's go to you in the meantime while he's sorting that out.
I was just going to say, maybe he's not being disingenuous, but he's just mistaken. When you move a lobster condo, it's the area that the lobster condo was once on, because lobster condos move around a lot in storms. They get towed away by other fishermen. That area where the lobster condo was is no longer has any relevance to the lobster condo whatsoever. So it's not the bed that's leased. It is strictly the condo itself. And there's nobody that's telling you you cannot lay your condos directly across the path of another person's condos. So it is really specifically looking at making the item, the condo itself, the unit. And once that thing breaks apart, the bottom on which it used to lay on has no relevance to that person anymore. There is no lease. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, I think he's having some issues getting on because now his video is gone as well. So hopefully he will sign back on. Okay, I want to read a comment from Carolyn King. Carolyn says, let's remove Mr. Labranche from the stream in the meantime until he comes back up. Carolyn says, this will be like the slick law that stops family islanders from getting sand from their shores. Instead, they have to buy sand in Nassau and transfer it to the islands. Just cray-cray. All right. Thank you so much, Carolyn, for your comment. Roger Burkon says, great show, great guest, and a timely topic. Well done, Michelle Malcolm. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Burkon, for tuning in and being a part of our discourse today. Let's see. Stacy says, will we agree with every bill presented? No, but when the bill discriminates against its own Bahamian women, it needs to be revisited and revised because it is wrong. Carolyn Stubbs says, Mr. Prescott is on point. Okay. And let's see. Felicia says, Mr. Smith, you are truly what the country needs at this time. Please, if you haven't as yet, consider running as an independent for Andros this political season, eh? And Lisa says, well said, we cannot bury our heads in the sand like the proverbial ostrich and turn a blind eye to the facts that the white Bahamians are given more privileges than black Bahamians. It is a fact and nothing but the truth. Okay, we see that Mr. Labranche is back. Mr. Labranche, you wanted to say something?
Yes, you can hear me now?
Perfectly, yes.
Okay, yeah, back with the lease on the Seabed. Again, the bill talks about being certain radius from certain traps at certain sector of the bill. But now what's happening now, what I've been dissecting is now being said that it's not final, they'll make some adjustment. And when I made the voice note, we only got information from Fishery what their intentions was, and that was to sell licenses to condos that sit in the bottom of the seabed. And once you sell a license or give somebody a permit for something, and then says that, you have to stay a certain radius from it, is clearly the lease that's being done, even though it's not worded that way on the bill. So Prescott was right. It is a lease. It didn't, they haven't finalized or decided how it would be done. And now I'm hearing that after my voice note went viral, that they would not do it. So I'm reading something. I've been digesting it, and I've taken it how it was given. And I would like to hear from the minister himself to clarify it for everyone, what the intentions are, and what legislations or policies would be in place that would clarify or stop this division. Because right now, as it speak, we are not together. We are divided in this fishing industry right now as it speak, and it's based on two factors, and it's been going on for a while. It's based, to me, on race, and there's also a second division that is happening based on this fishery bill. And it's been going on for a long time. It just didn't come into existence, like Prescott said, and that division is there. And the sad part is, um, nothing is being done by the competent authority or previous authorities to unite us as a fishing community.
Okay, so we
Michelle,
have
can I?
5 left. Go ahead. I'm going to let you respond, Prescott, but also keep in mind that these will be your final comments. I'm going to give
Yes.
each of you 1 minute. Okay, so let's go to you, Prescott. Final comments on the show.
Yeah, and again, thank you for having the show. Let me give you briefly, Michelle, when I came in the area, there were 5 people netting bonefish. And the way I dealt with it is I introduced them to fly fishing. Today, no one is doing it. These guys are earning a living. And I see the same approach to take place in this industry, as Ron pointed out. The division, while the fishermen have these genuine concerns, whether who's going in a trap or who's doing this, there are deeper underlying issues, because many persons in these communities, we have to come up with programs through what the organization Paul is in, introduce our people to deep drop fishing, the training programs, and address a lot of the chronic issue that is creating the division, because it's all driven by scarcity. And if you continue to just think, let me look out for myself, it's only going to keep expanding as opposed to getting to the real root of the problem. There's enough resources in this country for all of our citizens to be able to earn a decent living and survive in many areas. We just have to take a holistic approach to it and not just think about looking out for ourselves and not worrying about our brothers and sisters in the different islands. Thank you.
Okay, let's go to Paul. Final thoughts.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for the wonderful discussion. I think it's been very productive. I just want to tell all the fishermen that are out there listening, please get involved. Please reach out to your community leaders. Tell them what you feel. Tell them to reach out. Join something like the National Fisheries Association. Get involved. We are directly working with Department of Marine Resources. We are on almost every island. Please get involved with the policy making in your country, because the more that we do not involve ourselves and think that nothing is going to be done, the more you guarantee that that is what's going to take place. Please get active, be involved.
Thank you so much, Paul. And Mr. Labranche, your voice note started this, so let's let you have the final word. What are your final thoughts on this?
All right. Thank you, Michelle, for having me, and it's always a pleasure to be in before you, because I've been listening to you for so long, and you've been very, very productive as far as giving out information to us, and we listen to you and we support you no matter what hurdles you might have to cross. And also for my friends, Prescott and Paul, I look forward to dialoguing with you, and hopefully we could come together and come to a solution and see how we could better this fishing industry. My final solution is, my final comment is simple. I want to empower Bahamians when I decided to get into the fishing industry, because the business is a very lucrative business. And I could honestly say in the last 5 years, this business have made me very wealthy. And I think the information, as far as the wealth is concerned, is not being broadcast because of my belief of persons that don't want it out there. I'm saying Bahamians, young Bahamians, try to tap into this commercial fishing. It's very sustainable. You could make in a month's time $10,000 easily. I paid out. Get involved in this because I think that the information as far as how we could become sustainable is not being broadcast or what I could say pushed out there, because like I always said, fishing has been the best, it's been the secret, excuse me. And it's not an easy business, but learn as much as you can and get involved in this fishing industry because it is a way out and it's a natural resource and it's very easy.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I hate to cut you because it's a very good point you're making, but it's 1 o'clock. Time is gone.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for being a part of the show today. I'm going to end this show with a comment on Facebook from Anne Marie. She says, valuable presentation, Michelle Malcolm. We all need to read the bill in its entirety and raise our voices and speak to the issues. And that is the bottom line, people. Educate yourself about what is going on in your country so that you can have a meaningful contribution. Gentlemen, thank you once again for being a part of the show today. That's my time, y'all. Thanks so much for tuning in to GPS Global Paradigm Shift. Tomorrow is Wellness Wednesday. You don't want to miss that. Learn how to achieve optimal health. I'm Michelle Malcolm. Have a good afternoon, everyone.